Shalom, brothers and sisters. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Over here with
Johnny's back in California, baby.
Living it up. Praising Yah.
Yeah.
Got my brother Nick.
So happy.
Yeah. We're just so blessed. And we were having this conversation with Bernie as well. And I'm going to let Nick explain it.
Yeah, so we got carried away with a great conversation about humility and all the things that encapsulate it in the Bible and what we see in the world. For example, false humility, or what humility is to do for us, and even the deeper meaning behind humility. So we'll start there. So,
all right.
So for me, I think, it all starts obviously with Adam and Eve and their first sin and all the things that go on there. So like after they eat the tree of the fruit of knowledge and good and evil, then they become self-aware. And a lot of people who are aware of this story know that this is kind of what is alluding to the ego. Like when they are self-aware, they realize that they're naked, and then this is the first time they fear Yah. It shows that he wasn't even mad at them yet, but he said, "Where are you?" And then they hid from him, And so this is where fear begins. And fear and ego are like one and the same. And so if you think of anything that the ego produces, it is out of fear. For example, becoming, rich for your ego to supply for yourself, survival, it's like out of fear to not survive, kind of like that. So, and I think the obvious answer of the opposite of ego is humility.
Bam.
And so, before I go on, Johnny, is there anything you'd like to throw in there?
Well, I think that it's raining. Praise Yah. I think that the more that we receive from the Father is like the more that we should bring the fruit of humility in our understanding and explaining, and it's like that's one of the fruits that should grow the most. And I've noticed that people get knowledge and they get puffed up, and so the knowledge that they're receiving, which is knowledge of good, of Yah, they're not using it appropriately the way it would be for the benefit of the body, of the building up, of the tearing down of the strongholds. So it's used incorrectly. Yeah. So I think that it's that we should focus on being humble. It's like my dad used to. I used to tell my dad things that I learned years ago, and then 2 years later, he would tell me that he learned the same thing that I told him. And the first few times, duh, I already told you that like a year ago, Yeah. And then I noticed, I caught myself. Me and Bernie were talking, and so the next time he told me oh, good, I'm glad you found out, instead of using the pride, right? It's I'm
guilty of that too. Right when you start to learn, you get so excited, but also this is why it's important to learn the knowledge and practice at the same time, because if you're learning all this stuff but you're not practicing any of it, then it's you learn all this thing, but then you're still in your old flesh, and so your old flesh tends to brag or be more ego consumed than humility. And so just to get into the practicality kind of thing, and so I've been recently started playing drums for my congregation.
Oh, yeah!
And so as anybody watching this knows, it's nerve-wracking getting up in front of an audience of people. If you've never done it, you'll know for the first time. So I was pretty nervous starting that, but I started to think about this humility idea, and humility is the force that defeats evil, defeats fear, which is evil because it's ego and it's carnality and all that. But so I started to see okay, so how can I be humble up on stage to reduce my fear? And so when I was up, I noticed when I'm playing or when I'm nervous, even when I'm speaking or something in front of a bunch of people, I tend to think about myself and how, I want to look this way, or I want to do this, and that is all self. It's all fear. It's all ego.
He's so hit.
And so instead of looking through the lens of my own, like what I think would look good, I tried recently to put myself in the eyes of like either the whole congregation or one person specifically, or Yah, even better. If you can put your like consciousness through the eyes of somebody else, you're putting their priority above yours. And so that is that in doing that, you're creating humility. And I kid you not that I didn't feel fear the last time I did it. And it took a conscious effort, and I'm practicing it, and hopefully it becomes more natural, you know. What were you gonna say?
Oh, that what you were saying, that, you know, like to be humble is like we gotta define being humble, because it's not just like being shy. You remember what we were talking about?
Sorry, I was gonna
like
get there next.
because a lot of people will be like, "I'll be humble," and they're just all a little quiet. like that ain't humbleness.
That's right.
So humbleness is putting Yahuwah important. So sometimes being humble means that you got to stand up against false things, you know.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
Yeah, dude, exactly what you're saying. So if you're to put something above yourself, what better to put than Yah's doctrine above you? And so if you in humility are putting something higher than you, or giving something else priority over you, then you doing that in Yah, you're putting all the statutes, all the commandments, everything else higher than you. And so your job in being ultimately humble is to uphold these as strong as you can. And there is strength in this. And so that's humility. It's not like shying away or letting somebody go first. It's with all your might putting something that is higher than you before you. So enacting all, like if somebody like it's enacting all the laws or something in Leviticus. It's, let's say somebody's ox, you know, kills your ox or something, and like I think a lot of people nowadays would think, oh, me being humble, I won't say anything, it's okay. But if I want to uphold what I'm being humble to, the Father, I need to enact the rules and what should be in place. So in humility, I need to go to that person and say, you owe me an ox. For that. And that's me being humble, putting his law before me.
Beautiful. And I mean, I don't want to make it super long, but I think this is very important that we start becoming aware of what these definitions that Yah is calling us to have, the fruits of humility are, you know, because the world will tell you things of the Bible or things that Yah have said means something totally different which don't. And
like love, for instance, you know, like, you know, love isn't all this like mushy, gushy stuff. If you see when love is used in the Bible, it usually has to do with like sacrifice, or it's again like this humility thing where you're putting something else at a higher priority than yourself.
That's right.
And that is love. It's serving.
Amazing, you know? Amazing.
It's incredible. Praise Yah.
Well, we love you guys. Shalom.